All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And we had an interesting question that we were asking today. What is Andrew Yang worth? We started discussing the net worth of many of the presidential candidates, all the way from Michael Bloomberg, who's, putting out feelers for jumping into the race.
He's so rich, he's got progressives happy that he's richer than Trump. That's how rich Michael Bloomberg is.
Yeah, that's how deep the orange man badness goes.
But just how rich Bloomberg is. He's gone past billionaire bad to just I guess billionaire good again. He's so rich.
Yeah, he's the only man that's been able to change their minds about the 1%ers. The 0.001% guy. Anyway, we actually were wondering, what is Andrew Yang's net worth? And it's actually very surprising. I was off by a function of almost 1,000% in my guess. So I guess I think my gaydar is pretty good, but my dollar dar apparently is not as acute. You know what I'm saying? You didn't like that analogy, Cody?
Not really, no.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was a pretty solid analogy. So anyway, Cody, tell us what's going on, man.
Okay. Well, yeah, anyway, we were talking because something else I've seen come up a lot too. I was just going to highlight a couple articles really quickly, and I'm not saying anything in particular negative about these, but there's always this sense when you read a lot of stuff about Andrew Yang. Here we go. Silicon Valley is found as presidential candidate, and Andrew Yang, he's always referred to as, I believe they refer to him as the neoliberal tech bro in sheep's clothing, is some of the criticisms you will see of him.
Oh, brutal.
But there is always this juxtaposition of Andrew Yang and these ultra billionaire rich, Silicon Valley. I call them like funny money, where it's the point where it's like, oh yeah, like it's weird that my $5 million house has like 2 bedrooms and is like 1 story. I thought that's how much houses cost. Like, yeah, when you live in crazy land where you guys live. So we were talking like, how much is he worth? Because we know like, okay, he's not worth as much as Bloomberg. My boy Delaney at $300 million. He's a very wealthy individual.
Also, you hear of all these past financial successes of selling the book, and I know books aren't,
Well, what's it called?
But Venture for America.
Not Venture for America.
Sold.
Well, you know what I think happened actually? We'll get into it in a second. But he sold the prep. What is it called? Like,
the
prep, Long Island Prep or whatever.
The test prep company.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it. I feel bad.
It wasn't Kaplan. It was anyway, we're both blanking on it. But
anyway,
you hear stories of all these things that you've done that have been financially successful, and you kind of assume that there's like this rollover of wealth. I guessed he was in the $5 to $10 million range, but we were wrong. You know what I'm saying? I was thinking he was at least a 5 to 10 millionaire.
Well, here's the other thing too, is the sense that one of the first times where I kind of thought it was weird, I think he says this on a live stream, I think he did originally. Here we go. Here's a tweet from Andrew Yang, going back to June, a while ago. But Andrew Yang famously flies coach still. Maybe now he's raising enough money not, but Joe Biden went into the red flying private jets. So maybe it's not a good idea. But here's the thing I think is a little interesting. So I thought it was weird. I'm like, I know he's wealthy. But anyway, without further ado, Forbes article came out. A lot of you guys probably actually know this number already. But Andrew Yang is actually, we'll scroll through. So who's the richest? Donald. Well, this is before Bloomberg entered. So Bloomberg's now the richest in the race. But then the next richest would be Donald Trump. Like I said, my man John Delaney, everyone always sleeps on him. He's a very wealthy individual. $200 million.
Well, you skip Tom Steyer.
Well, because he's also a billionaire. Billionaire. Michael Bennett. Shout out to Bennett, man.
I had no idea Bennett was
Warren,
a billionaire.
By the way, very wealthy woman. Very wealthy woman, Elizabeth Warren. Like I said, I love how Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax starts right above here. Right about above me when I'm running for president. And then Joe Biden worth about $10 million. Kamala Harris, Joe Sestak, Beto O'Rourke. Even Bernie's made himself a nice little way into a couple $1 million. And you get all the way down here. Andrew Yang, according to Forbes, is worth less money than Amy Klobuchar, Steve Bullock, Cory Booker. By the way, wasn't Cory Booker the mayor of a city in New Jersey like 5 years ago? Not that long ago, he was a mayor. Now he's $1 million out. Maybe
the mayor's pulling down more money.
But you'll notice Andrew Yang, according to Forbes, is worth about $1 million total. Now, a couple. I know
that's just bad math. I almost couldn't believe it when I read that.
I think this is a function of selling a private company and then getting into a nonprofit. It's not good for your net worth to run a nonprofit. For a nonprofit that consists of you investing in kind of long shot small businesses across the country. And I don't want to get too far into it. We'll do another video diving further into the actual numbers of Yang. Because what I wanted to bring up here was there definitely seems to be this culture around Andrew Yang as just being kind of one of those rich tech bro candidates. Oh, he's like the Silicon Valley candidate. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. Andrew Yang is, from a conservative estimate, worth less than most of these career politicians. But even with, I think the furthest estimate I've seen of his net worth goes to $5 million. You'll notice that's still less than people like Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, career politicians. It's still less than Joe Sestak. So, right, I mean, like I said, the kind of like the furthest range I've seen of his worth goes to Beto money. Here's the thing. We get this notion that, Andrew Yang is a rich entrepreneur, he's a businessman, but realistically, he's worth less than the politicians he's running. He's running against career, I guess Beto O'Rourke's family's rich, but seriously, Kamala Harris was a prosecutor.
Yeah.
How much do district attorneys get, or how much do they get paid realistically? You know what I mean? Like, how much does the attorney general get paid on an annual basis?
Well, by the companies that help fight wildfires and get the free labor, she was, I'm sure, getting something.
My point exactly is, why do they frame Andrew Yang as this businessman, tech bro, Silicon Valley entrepreneur? Why don't they talk about the fact that this tech bro, Silicon Valley entrepreneur is worth less than Cory Booker, perhaps, who was, and people say he was a non-corrupt governor. I'm not gonna say he was corrupt, but in New Jersey, I think he mentions that every single mayor for 30 years before him was arrested for corruption.
Was indicted, yeah.
So it is interesting to see that even a guy who was allegedly the first straight mayor of, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of the city. It's from Newark. In Newark in a while. Yeah. Even though Newark's first straight mayor is worth more money than Andrew Yang, according to Forbes. That to me is interesting when you factor in one other thing. Because again, Andrew Yang gets painted as, he's the Silicon Valley candidate.
Yeah, his whole vibe
he's the big tech guy. Well, I know you want to talk about this, so I'm just going to throw it on screen and throw it to you. But here's what Andrew Yang actually receives in donations. And now, this was put together by the BBC, but the source on this is the Federal Election Commission, if you want to say it's not true. And here we go. Andrew Yang actually receives the largest percentage of his contributions from small donors. Now, I do want to highlight, I believe when they're talking about transfers, that is transferring funds from a Senate or congressional race now to your presidential campaign. Or it's this was money I received to run for Senate, but now I'm running for president. I think that's that yellow line transfer you see. I don't know. By the way, a couple things you'll notice right away too. Tom Steyer basically nobody gave, but you notice one other quirk from Tom Steyer. Another thing, this is what happens when somebody's actually running a grassroots campaign, Andrew Yang, not some tech bro billionaire. And this is what happens when a billionaire runs. A billionaire spends this much of his own money to get this many donations. That's what happens. When you're a billionaire, you spend millions of your own money just to get tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands in small donations. When you're an actual grassroots candidate who's not some Silicon Valley rich guy, entrepreneur, businessman, you get your money from small donors. Now, it's also worth noting that the percentage of Andrew Yang's money to come from big donors exceeds candidates like Sanders and Warren. However, it's also worth noting, like I said, I believe the transfers there refers to money transferred from previous campaigns. Those could be big money donors. I just think it is worth noting that Andrew Yang also has not self-funded this. Again, this is what happens when a rich guy runs for president. He self-funds it. This is what happens with Tom Steyer. Sorry if you can see my arrow. This is what happens when you see somebody running for president with Andrew Yang, who is a legit small market guy. So I apologize for taking too much time. Say what you want to say.
Well, I was just saying that, it's probably a little bit more relevant to what you were saying earlier, but his vibe does not come across as a dude whose net worth is worth, what was it, $884,000?
Between, like I said, the low end under $1 million, high end about $5 million is the research I found.
Okay, yeah, but still, $750,000. That's a house for a family of 4, which he has
up to 5, right?
in Southern California. Yeah, you sell your house here and you move to Tennessee and you're worth Andrew Yang's net worth, but his whole vibe does not project that. He doesn't project that kind of wealth. He comes across as like a little mini Zuckerberg, like I took on Silicon Valley and I got my slice of the pie.
He walks that walk, but
he walks that walk. It was actually, I don't want to say disappointing, but it was really just, it kind of took me off guard when I found out he was worth less than $1 million because he sold that test prep company and it was so successful. He started Venture for America. You'd think that having known a bunch of successful entrepreneurs all over the United States of America, he would have seen a bunch of startups that he's like, yeah, dude, here, I'll invest 10K in that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah, hey, I'll invest 20K in that. I also wonder about
something else. Andrew Yang talks about a lot.
What?
Andrew Yang talks a lot about accountants that do a really good job of making sure you don't have to pay taxes. I wonder.
I was wondering the same thing.
Because I don't want to get too far into this.
Is he hiding his wealth?
But famously, that's what Trump said when he was going on 15. He's like, look, I've hid my money and not paid taxes my entire life. I know people do it. I want to stop it. I don't know if he has. Maybe Yang is trying to do a cagier version of, trust me. I thought it was funny when he went on the H3H3 podcast and Ethan Klein said, people always tell me rich people don't pay taxes. Well, no one told me that I pay a ton in taxes. And I think Andrew Yang's on the other end of that. Of like, well, you don't have to, man. There's some people out there who do a very good job and are compensated well for not doing. He mentions it a lot about Amazon. So I think maybe, no flame, but is that maybe why we see?
Yeah, we don't have the tax returns and the smoking gun and the cash in the case. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it really does make you think. His vibe is not somebody. I mean, you can be worth that much money and be living paycheck to paycheck in Southern California or in Manhattan. Like there are places in the United States of America where that kind of net worth is like nothing. You're in debt. You're living beyond your means.
And here we go. Here we go. I think another good way of putting it is, like I said, he ran this nonprofit. This is from Business Insider, just really quickly.
Okay.
Business Insider. They again cite the Forbes number, but again, the sources here are the Center for Public Integrity that referenced that he received about $285,000 a year as CEO. And they estimate it's worth at about $1 million through Forbes. So I mean,
yeah, basically we
if he kind of ran a loss on his nonprofit, maybe.
Yeah, we went on 4 major websites that all had different measurable quantifiers. Just the basic Wikipedia article that cited like 10 sources, the Forbes article, the Business Insider, and then there was the other one that was from like 2 years ago, and none of them put their best guess at anything above $1 million. Not 1.1.
No, five was the highest.
Yeah, the ones, but they were also saying as low as like basically $800,000.
And
they had the widest spread.
Not hung up in the exact number. I think it's worth noting. It's not worth as much as they pretend he is.
Yeah, in a nutshell, he walks and projects like a $10 to $20 million guy, but it kind of blew my mind that he actually is estimated at just $1 million of net worth.
He's worth less than Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when they say, oh, he's the Silicon Valley tech millionaire candidate, it's like, I guess he also gets the most amount of his donations from small donors, and he's worth about as much as Julian Castro. So if you want to say he's the big money, super tech bro guy, he isn't. And a lot of people say that, oh, Yang wants to just sell us out to massive corporations. Like, really? Why? Why would Andrew Yang want to sell us out to massive corporations and not these people that I can't explain exactly why somebody like a Joe Biden's worth $9 million? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they like the corporations a little bit. Maybe John Delaney, no offense, likes the corporations a little bit more than Andrew Yang, someone who ran a nonprofit funding small businesses.
And this is another reason, though, why I also think something's off here. Okay, something's off here. Yeah, who knows? Maybe he is a closet 10 millionaire and he's just good, got some awesome accountants that are hiding the cash. Or maybe he just legit is worth that amount of money. But I love how his campaign, gets the most amount of small donations. He's actually surpassed, Bernie Sanders in street cred in terms of small donations. I know Kyle Kulinski on Secular Talk, who's a big Bernie bro, is always talking about how small donations show who's the most American person. It's hilarious because now Andrew Yang has out-progressived even the most progressive of candidates.
Well, I guess this graph does show that when you look at Steyer and you see how much red he has to spend to get how much blue, right?
Yeah. Well, so it's hilarious that Andrew Yang is the most progressive if the rubric of progressive fundraising is small donations. But at the same time, he's also getting a bigger amount of big donors than even Elizabeth Warren, who gets hammered for having received so much corporate money. And I actually like seeing big donor money in certain ways. And let me explain this. Sure, if you're a populist, you can fundraise disproportionately to your electoral performance. For example, I loved Ron Paul. Ron Paul could always get more donations than he ever would votes. So usually when money is a barometer of a campaign, Ron Paul's financial barometer always was higher and performing better than his electoral success was. Okay. So it's a generally good barometer, but not a flawless one. All right. Now, to me, if you see somebody who's getting tons of small donations, but not a lot of big donations, and they're refusing to take corporate money, well, the Green Party, for example, is notorious for they don't allow corporate donors, right? Well, that's why they also never win. Okay. There's a reality to the American economy in which to be a good president, you need to convince big business that, hey, look, there's an avenue for you to perform and do well as long as you're doing it ethically. There is a place for large businesses in our economy, in a very important place, okay? People are always ripping on big industries and big business and things like that without recognizing the importance that they have in the ecosystem of our economy. All right. So when somebody's getting nothing but small donations, well, generally their candidacy is going to flop because they're probably a populist candidate. And that kind of populist candidate usually doesn't go far because they're usually one-trick ponies that are vilifying the rich. And at the same time, people that are only getting corporate donations never really go that far either, because usually they're very establishment. Usually they're kind of corrupt. Usually they're very boring, not personable people that are detached in their ivory towers from the struggles of the common person. And guess what? All those common people have a vote too. So when you see lots of small donations, it doesn't mean you're going to do well. When you see lots of big donations, it doesn't mean you do well.
Do you think it's kind of almost like when you look at like someone's like, I know this is kind of weird for me to talk about, but kind of like people like investment portfolios. Like, it's good to have some of it in gold.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want 80%.
Yeah.
But like, it's good to have some money from big donors. You do need some of that support, but it is probably better to have a majority from the small donors.
Well, it also
right?
shows
it's good
that
to have some of that other support.
Yeah. It also shows that I think there's a lot of doubt. Like if Bernie Sanders were president, I think there's a lot of doubt that he could walk into a Wall Street meeting and have anybody take him seriously. They would just view him as an enemy to their business who knows nothing about it, probably doesn't even know what the words mean in their vocabulary, and is somebody who just needs to be fought. You know what I'm saying? But if you're able to actually convince big donors to give you money out of something other than just shame and PR, then it actually shows, holy smoke, here's a guy that's threading that needle. He is simultaneously convincing big business, look, in the economic framework I'm providing, there's a spot for you in which you will do well. Perform ethically, and I will make sure that you do well. And they believe him. These intelligent men who run these big corporations out of fiduciary responsibility to the corporation and personal self-interest in their own paycheck think, wow, this guy's got good ideas that will benefit me and my company, while simultaneously having ideas good enough that all of the common men, the proletariat, the 99%, whatever you want to call them, are believing in him as well and giving him the money they can. You have to have one hell of an awesome plan if both people in those camps are both giving you their money.
Well, but here's the big thing too, that we talked about this in a video we did the other day on Michael Bloomberg. It's an article from September the 26th. I think it's going to be infinitely more and more relevant as the cycle goes on. Yeah. And as it seems more and more like Biden's probably going to falter and it's going to be Warren and Sanders fighting it out to the end. Wall Street Democratic donors warn the party will sit out or back Trump if you nominate Elizabeth Warren. My point being is they are up for grabs. These big, I think that's why Bloomberg jumped in. Yeah. The boys were like, we have no idea what to do. We're actually going to just back Trump, I guess, because we don't want to back any of these people. Yeah. What do we do? He's like, I'll jump into the race. So what I think is, I guarantee you Yang knows this. I believe Yang actually just tweeted the other day this election's wide open. And realistically, it is kind of wide open. If Michael Bloomberg thinks he can just jump in 5 debates in and have a chance, this is wide open. I mean, like, he has a lot of money.
And Michael Bloomberg wasn't just sitting on his lazy boy in his Manhattan apartment saying like, I think I'll jump in.
I want to get to
He hired somebody to run the numbers and do analyses.
But again, aside from Michael Bloomberg, what's interesting about Yang with this, like you brought up, the fact that he's still getting these large donors, it's because this is a big bag of money right now that is without a home. There's a big bag of money looking for a home and it doesn't know where to go. It doesn't want to go to Warren. It doesn't want to go to Sanders. But yeah, it looks like perhaps it might be going to Andrew Yang. And I think that is what's really interesting here. And I think it's really fascinating to point out that a lot of people in the media, not always, but I do see on Twitter and stuff, Andrew Yang get characterized as the Silicon Valley tech bro, businessman, entrepreneur. And even though they don't say he's the richest guy ever, they paint the picture of this luxury jet flying, super rich businessman. But realistically, he's probably worth less money than Bernie Sanders. And realistically, most of his support is small donations. And realistically, he's probably closer and on par with Marianne Williamson. Even Marianne's richer than him. Again, another person we have time here, another person who gets smeared relentlessly. They bill Marianne like she's worth hundreds of millions. She has this empire. No, she's worth like maybe a couple million. According to Forbes, 1.5. You know who's worth more than both of these independently wealthy business people running for president? Lifelong politicians like Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, and Elizabeth Warren. Those are people worth more money than these business entrepreneurs coming in with no experience to run. And that's what I think is kind of bothering me and crazy. The fact that they act like these people, because they made their money working in the public sector like we all do, they're bad people. The people that enrich themselves to the tune of $12 million working in the public sector, good for you, man. I'm so happy Joe Biden made $9 million working in the White House, working in Capitol, or working in the government for 30 years. You know, I'm so happy that Kamala Harris, working as a prosecutor in California, it was $6 million. But hey, worry about these business people coming in with no experience, like Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson, that are worth less money than Bernie Sanders. They're worth less money than former mayor of New Jersey, of New York, New Jersey, Cory Booker. It's crazy, man. It's nonsense. I think it's worth reminding people that in reality, Andrew Yang is actually the grassroots candidate. He really is. We're talking before. Yeah. He really is. It's not these people. Like I said, you've noticed the shift goes from millionaires are okay now. You notice that once all these people I just highlighted became millionaires in the last few years, like 10 years or so, millionaires are fine now. Millionaires aren't the problem. Can you imagine? Look, I'm just a multimillionaire. I own 4 homes in places like Connecticut and DC. How could you expect me to possibly pay these awful wealth taxes? Only
it is hilarious. She started the line right there.
Only the people worth roughly 3 times more than I am have to pay these. But again, it just...
She's like, what's my wealth again? Yeah, the tax starts right there.
Does it mean in 30 years, all of a sudden it's going to be like, these multi-billionaires, $1 billion, please. I have to... There's a really famous line, actually. I want to see if I can pull this up. It's it's one of the last things I want to talk about. A really, really, really famous line from an NBA player. He was offered a massive contract extension.
Wow, okay.
I believe it was an NBA. Yes. And now, it didn't work out so well for this guy. But famously...
Really? Okay.
Famously, Latrell Sprewell said that the $21 million he was offered over 3 years was quote-unquote not enough to feed my family.
Oh!
So my point being is, what's scaring me is one thing when...
Well, that's what all the rich say. They say, to maintain my lifestyle.
No, I mean, it's one thing when Latrell Sprewell was saying this in 1992, right? But it's another thing when we're getting this kind of sane attitude from people running for president as Democrats that are like, oh, well, look, man, Elizabeth Warren, me and my husband, we're only worth $12 million. $12 million. I love Bernie. If we tax $100 billion from Bill Gates, we'll have $1 billion left. Like, okay, who do we get the next $100 billion from after we spend that? Who's next? So, I don't know. I don't want to get too long into this stuff. I just wanted to highlight. I've been kind of frustrated. See a lot of people talking about like, oh, Andrew Yang just wants to gut the social safety net because he's some heartless entrepreneur. He's worth less money than Bernie Sanders due to some estimates. Yeah. He's worth less money than Elizabeth Warren due to every estimate. Yet, yes, he's the one working for the businesses. It's not the people that somehow got rich in the public sector. It's the guy who made a moderate small amount of nice money to support his family in the private sector and then actually made a nonprofit supporting small businesses. He's the big bad guy. Don't worry about Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris making millions and millions of dollars working for the state and the federal government.
So
blows my mind.
How do we market him now, though, Cody? Because, for example, it used to be that, hey, here's this really smart guy who came out of Silicon Valley with a really good nonprofit named Venture for America that won the Medal of Achievement from Barack Obama, who's got some really, really good ideas that could affect change. He was almost kind of like this, marketed as kind of like this private sector philosopher king, right? But knowing what we know about his finances now, you can't really market him that as this, big tech bro, because tech bro insinuates that you made bazillions of dollars, Zuckerberg style. The original tech bro was freaking Bill Gates. You know what I'm saying? Like you can no longer kind of insinuate that. So it's like, what's the elevator pitch on Andrew Yang? Oh, well, here's this guy with a net worth about same as you, but he's got really good ideas.
Yeah, he's just running. What's kind of sad? We've come to a point where people just expect if you're running for president, you're mega rich. And I think it is worth noting. Andrew Yang, I do think, is a little bit wealthier than he's letting on. However, I do think, like I said, there's a sense that it's like Americans just have accepted like, oh, yeah, if you run for president, you're probably worth like $50 million. Now, he's not that bad yet, but yeah, if you run for president and you're polling high, you're worth over $1 million easily. Again, that's why you'll notice no one really cares about millionaires. These poor, did you imagine these poor millionaires living paycheck to paycheck out here, man? Yeah. It's just, they keep changing the way that we frame how much someone's worth, and I think it's a whole other question about poverty and wealth I don't want to get into. It's a good discussion, just not enough time for today. I just want to take some time to highlight that while Andrew Yang is fundraising a lot of money, while Andrew Yang is doing very well in the money sense, he's doing it with the support of the people. He's doing it with small donors as well as
Yeah,
a small
he's the
little
small donor guy.
cushion of large donors as well.
Well, it's weird.
And
He's
as you
the big
mentioned-
donor guy too.
Well, no, because he also has raised less money than these candidates. So remember, just because he's got
Yeah.
a higher percentage, it could be
That's
a smaller
true.
number.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it's just a graph. It just highlights though that he is getting a lot of his like a lot of people who donate to him aren't donating a lot of money.
Yeah, and I shouldn't say the big donor guy because there's definitely people that dwarf him in terms of.
You mean Pete Buttigieg, who
High
actually
dollar
receives the
donations.
majority of his funding from large donors,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Joe Biden, who receives, I think, 65% of his funding from large donors? Wow. Or Cory
that's-
Booker, actually. You want to talk about who's the least? You know who isn't the candidate of the people?
Yeah.
Cory Booker.
Cory Booker.
No one wants to give him money. It's crazy. Anyway, without getting too long in this, we thought that was interesting just talking to you guys about a little bit more an idea, because like I said, it's easy to get this lost in, these business people, Marianne and Marianne Anderson must be worth hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
So like, those people like Trump, if you're just going to run for president, you have to be so rich, and it's like, not exactly. And it is worth noting, Andrew Yang is worth less money, realistically, for sure than Warren, for sure than Biden, and probably less than Sanders, and probably less than Cory Booker and Amy Klobuchar. It is fascinating to look at.
So anyway, tell us where we go wrong. Make sure that you subscribe to us. Click that subscribe button. Like us. Share this video. Reach out on Twitter if you guys got any leads for us. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitter. That's where we kind of disseminate a lot of our information first. That's at PSP Radio 1. And hang out with us for our live stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Also, make sure that you leave us a voicemail. Let us know your opinion at 1-833-PSP Radio. This is Problem Solver Politics. We will see you in the next video.